America's 18th church, and we started 9 years ago. So we're 9 years in. We're a church of about 500 people, about a year away from breaking ground on a nice building on a nice corner in the city of Blaine. So I want to talk to you a little bit about marketing. This is going to be more tactical than it is philosophical. So if you're looking for a message on why should a church market, this isn't for you, I guess, because I'm just assuming that you believe that a church should do marketing, advertising to get their name out there. And what I mostly want to do is kind of walk you through the best tactics. I've given different variations of this talk at a bunch of different places over the years, and one of the things that I would say is it evolves constantly. Even looking at this 3 years ago, it just doesn't even remotely look the same. I think I gave this talk a similar version to a different group maybe 4 years ago. In my notes, it said something like, "Don't waste your money on social media," right? Like obviously things have changed, and so it's always fluctuating, always changing. And really, all I can do is walk you through our story in our context. And so we've had a lot of success with marketing, but it's our story, right? With our designer and our city and our way that we do it. And so you might look at some of these things and say, yeah, that just wouldn't work for us. It wouldn't work for our culture, it wouldn't work for the city that we're in. All I can do is tell you my story, and you can take with what you want of it. So we've had a lot of success, I would say particularly in marketing when it comes to special events, and some moderate success when it comes to just general marketing of the church. And so, whether that be, Mark using our playbook to do a grand opening of a church, or we do a number of events. So like for Easter, we do an egg hunt with our services. So we average 500 people, but we had 2,000 people at Easter. So 1,500 visitors. We do a fall outreach with kind of classic bouncy houses. We bring in free food trucks. We average 500. We had 1,500, so we had 1,000 visitors in one Sunday. And that's 900 to 950 of those 1,000 people are from marketing. It's only really 50 to 100 that are just from friends, family members, and such. And so we've been able to drive a lot of people in to hear the gospel. So just in the last 12 months, because when we do an event like that, we always share Jesus with people. I give people, I'm an evangelist at heart, so I give people an opportunity to stand up, accept Christ. We do an invitation. So we've shared the gospel with over 2,000 people just in the last 12 months, just as a church of 500 people. So why do marketing? I think you know this, but it's the Great Commission, right? We want to get out, we want to reach people, we want to make disciples. And you can reach people through marketing that your people can't reach. When you think about how many people are in your city, your people don't have relational connections to everyone in your city. But through marketing, you have a shot at some people that you would never have a shot at because your people just don't have a relationship with them. One of the things I've learned about marketing is when we ramp up towards something and we're handing our people an invite card or they see our stuff on Facebook, is it creates momentum in your church. I think that's one of the things that people don't understand if they don't market, that your people love it. They get excited about it when they, we saw the signs, we keep seeing the signs. It's actually creating sort of a proud ownership and excitement in your church. It's sort of a tertiary benefit of it. And I would tell you, as a church that's seen a ton of people come to Christ in 9 years, if I had to quantify it, I would say, you have like those incredible testimonies in your church, like, this person came to Christ in their life. Like if you had to make a video right now about somebody in your church who's just had incredible transformation, I would say 75% of those people in our church are people that heard about us through our marketing, not through friendship evangelism. And certainly that's happened too, but we've just seen some incredible stories just because they got a postcard or saw a sign or saw something on Facebook. And so before I get to the tactics, let me just take one more section. I think there are still a lot of churches, not so much in church plants, but the older a church gets, the more established it gets, that don't want to market. And the two big reasons they're opposed to it, or opposed to doing it significantly. You might not be philosophically opposed to it, but you don't want to put more than $1,000 into it or $2,000, is because they either philosophically oppose it, just say, churches shouldn't do that, we should just do one-on-one relationships, or people will say, I don't have that much money in my budget to waste on marketing or to gamble or risk on marketing. I'm a math guy. I'm a son of a math teacher, so I love numbers. And so I don't know if this feels crass to you, but I will just give you a basic return on investment. Right now, it seems really terrible to say when you're talking about salvations, but this is how you're not going to lose your money on marketing. So here's just a case study. So we do an event in the spring. We've changed it a bunch, so it's usually in February. We call it Polar Picnic, where we just feed everybody who comes after the service a free Jimmy John's. And this last year we brought in like a horse-drawn wagon carriage thing that kids could go on a ride in afterwards and such. And so that day I spent $5,000 on that event. And so a portion of that was like the actual food, but the majority of that was marketing, was getting the word out. We saw 75 first-time visitors that Sunday. The average amount given by renovation attenders per year. So just take your annual offering divided by your average attendance. For us, that's roughly $1,350. And so you're saying, I put out in expenses $5,000. In the next year, can I make that up? And in order to make up $5,000, I need to have how many people stick? It's just the math. It's 5,000 divided by how many new givers I need, which is $1,350. So I need 3.7 people. That's 4 people. And so of those 75 visitors, I only need 4 of them to stick at our church to not lose money on marketing. And I think sometimes churches miss that. They go, I'm going to spend $5,000 on an event. How am I ever going to get that back? Well, you're going to get some people to stick at your church. And eventually they're going to start giving. And so I think people sometimes feel like marketing is a throwaway financially, and it just isn't. If you do it well, you not only will not lose money, you actually make money. That's not why you do it, but you're going to share the gospel and you're going to actually grow your church. And so the main thing that I want to do today is just walk you through 7 or 8 actual tactical methods of marketing. We try to put 10% of our budget into marketing. It's slipped a little bit over the years. It's probably maybe 7-8% at this point. And so I've literally spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing since we've started our church. And so we've tried everything. And so I just want to give you some of our data on what works and what doesn't work. And again, this is contextual, right? It's our story. And there's so many variables, right? If you throw out a postcard, but your postcard sucks, people aren't coming, right? If you do an amazing digital billboard and your website is horrible, people aren't coming. And so there's a lot of factors. If you can do an incredible job on social media, but if your service is awkward, they're not sticking. And so you got to put it all together. Okay, so first one, invite cards. I have like an effectiveness and cost rating on each one and how much you're going to spend to get a visitor. At least this is from our data. And so invite cards are 10 out of 10. Everybody in this room, if you have a church, you should be printing invite cards for your people. Our data is, for every $2 we spend on an invite card, we see a visitor. So it's nothing. I mean, no, we're not putting $3,000 into invite cards, because that would be like 600,000 invite cards, right? So you can buy invite cards on a website like GotPrint. You can get 1,000 of them for $30, right? So if we do 1,000 and I get a whole bunch of them out to our people, I can expect that I might see 15 visitors out of that. That's sort of where the ratio comes from.
What size invite cards have you found?
We just do like a
card size.
We mostly have just done business cards, ones that people can stick in their wallet and take easily. You know, one of the things I would say with the invite card is you want to make sure to not do it too often. So we do it at Christmas, we do it at Easter, we do it at our fall event. If we have like a really amazing series that I thought was really invitable, we might do it for that. But I was at a church when I was a youth pastor where they printed a new invite card for every series, and the people just left them on the chairs because it wasn't special. It was just something you kind of did and they ignored it. But if you can do it 3 or 4 times a year, it's something that your people can have in their hands. It's awkward to say, hey, a coworker down the hall, keeps his office really clean.
There's nothing in it.
Would you like to? It's just easier to hand something to people. So it's just a tool that costs you almost nothing to get to your people. One of the things that we do is, I'll tell our people, hey, we're going to give you 4 invite cards, and your goal is by next Sunday that you would pray that you would get rid of all of them. And we just sort of have them set a goal that way, that they are thinking in their mind, okay, Lord, help me find another person that I can get rid of them from. one of the things that people will tell you, and you probably had people in your church tell you this, that the best marketing is word of mouth. You ever hear that? It's not, don't put up a billboard, don't waste your money on it. The best marketing is just word of mouth. That is absolutely true on a cost per visitor basis, because it doesn't cost much money to talk about it, but there's a real cap to your reach. Your people only know so many people. And so if you really want to extend your reach, you have to move beyond things like invite cards and just conversation. So that brings us to our next one. This is social media. Social media, in terms of its effectiveness in marketing, has increased exponentially over the last couple of years. If you're not putting money into social media, I pray that you are by the end of the month, because it's just that effective. To me, it's a 9 out of 10 in marketing. And so our average cost per visitor, particularly on Facebook, is $8. So think about this. That means every $8 I spend on Facebook, somebody visits my church. $8. Not 80, not 800, every $8 someone comes. And so that number is primarily calculated off a special event or something we're inviting them to, not just like a general church ad, which is that's gonna be a higher number. But like, for instance, when we did our Family Fun Day outreach in the fall, I spent $3,000 on Facebook alone. But we saw 375 visitors who said they came because they saw something on Facebook. That's crazy. And so it's a powerful thing. And so I'm going to primarily talk about Facebook. I'll talk about some of the other ones at the end. Facebook is really where you want to put your money in terms of marketing and social media. One of the things that you have to do if you want to do this is you have to have somebody on your team. If you're a lead pastor, it doesn't have to be you, but somebody on your team needs to learn what's called Facebook's Ad Manager. That's the thing that's bolded right there. It's not enough to simply go and boost a post. Maybe you've done that before and you paid $20 or $100 to boost a post, because it's limited in what you can actually define as your parameters. And so have someone take a few hours. It's really intuitive, honestly, and sit down and learn Facebook Ad Manager. You can just Google it to find the site and get in there for your page. And there's a lot of things you can do, and I'll talk through some of the nuanced things that we've done that have really helped us be more successful in marketing.
Just say after you set those parameters, when you click boost, it allows you to reuse those parameters.
Yeah, you can save some of them too. Yep. So we've actually had the best experience with photo ads. Just a high quality photo of our event, of a service, of something that's happening. And second best has been video, but I always thought that video would just crush over photo, but it's just more clickable. I don't know why that is. Maybe sometimes you can't control what's happening in the first 5 seconds of a video, but photos have been the most successful for us. If you're just really new in this, one of the things that you can't really do in marketing is use like what you would use for like a slide on a Sunday morning. You can't have more than 20% of your image covered with text, but you can't even make a good looking slide with 80% blank space. And so you have to find a high quality photo to use of your event. Creating the right audience is key. We were horrible at this when we started in marketing. We would just put money into advertising and it would go all over the metro. And people would show up to our events from Cottage Grove, right? From Lakeville, and those people are never coming back if they have to drive 60 miles to your church. And so you want to go in Ad Manager and you want to select the right demographic. So geo-target is a huge piece of that. You can go in, there's kind of a radius, so you can go say, hey, our church is right here, we want to create a circle radius around that. Now they changed it in the last year, you can actually go in and type in zip codes. So just Google like a zip code map of the metro area, and we just go in and we literally pick, okay, we want Blaine, we want Andover, we're gonna steal those people from Maple Grove. I'm just kidding. You just go around, you pick the zip codes that make sense to you. Some of you have rivers that you're crossing over and stuff, and people are never crossing over the Mississippi. But if you can go in and actually pick the zip codes, you can pick where people are actually gonna come from. We do age demographic targeting, and so we are fairly broad in this, but we'll do most of our ads for 22 to 49-year-olds. You know, if you're targeting 15-year-olds, which Facebook will, if you don't touch these parameters, it'll do birth to 99, right? And so you want to find what's your age demographic target for your church. And for a lot of you, that's just really different. Another thing that we do is, I would say over maybe even 80 to 90% of the time, we only advertise to women on Facebook. Now I know it may sound counterintuitive. You know, for years, people have been saying we do church targeted at men. And you can do your Sunday morning services targeted at men if you want, because you want your men to actually come. But your men are never clicking on a Facebook ad and saying, hey honey, I know that we haven't gone to church in 10 years, let's rally the kids and go to the Easter egg hunt. Just flush your money down the toilet. They're not clicking on your ad. We experimented with a lot, and we would just see women just click, 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 click on everything we do, and the men never even click on it. And so instead, we're marketing to double the amount of women and just leaving the men out of it. Because it's the women that say, you know what if we went to church again? We're going to go to this thing, they're starting their fall launch, let's just bring the family. And then you want to have a service that the men are really going to like, but we haven't had a lot of success targeting men in actual marketing. One of the things, when you get into ad manager, I'm really kind of high detail in this. I'll try and get back to 10,000 feet here in a little bit. But just for those of you that actually do this, you're the social media person in your church, Facebook will ask, we want to put your ad on, but they'll give you like 15 places you can put it. You can put it in the news feed, you can put it on the right, or use of the right column. They'll put it even in placements all around the web that they have affiliates with. They want to put it everywhere, and what we do is we say, we just want it in the news feed. Because that's where, to the regular person, it feels, they know that it's sponsored, they probably see the little sponsor thing, but it feels normal. When you're on the right side of the page or some other website, it just feels like an ad to them. And so we've had the most success if we just only put our advertising in the news feed. We'll spend usually our ad over a few days. We found that if we put all the money into one day, that we don't get the results we want. If we spread it out over 10 days, we don't get the results that we want. And so usually we'll run an ad for 2 or 3 days. For those of you that are super technical and into this, we've had a lot of success with experimenting with bidding. So when you're an ad manager, at the very bottom of it, there's an option to actually, Facebook will automatically do it for you if you don't do anything, but you can put in, I want to spend $3 for every link click. And we just started adjusting that. Oh, we'll do $3.25 or $3.50. And the more we played with that, the more success we have too. But that's for the junkies in the room. One of the best things that we've done in marketing on social media is to create an action step. So the reason that we have so many people come to our events from social media is because we'll say, here's the event or here's the church service, pre-register today. And it's just a link for them to go to our website and pre-register their kids for children's ministry. We're kind of behind technologically in children's check-in. We don't have iPads or anything. It's just like an old computer they're typing in. We just literally have our admin type it in like the week of, so it's in the database. But what happens is when people drive by and they see your ad on a billboard, they go, oh, yeah, I should do that, that'd be great. And then they get home and they forget all about it. But when they're on social media and they see it, they think, oh, that'd be really cool, I should try that church, I've been driving by that church. And you have them take an action step and they pre-register their kids, they now they RSVP'd. In their mind, they're going to it now. And we have their information and we'll send them an email or two a week of saying, hey, saw that you signed up, here's what you need to know when you come. And so we see so many more people, I think, from social media because we've created that action step.
Do you normally base it around the kids, like registering the kids? Or
Yeah, it's almost always on kids.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Yep. Other ideas you can do with Facebook, you can email your people with a status you want them to share on your page, or on their page, with a photo. One of the things that we've learned with Facebook over the last year or two is they've really devalued the share. You know, when you see something, you're telling your people, hey, share this post, it's gonna show it to like maybe 5% of their friends. You ever notice like they share it and every share has like 1 like, 2 likes, because they're not showing it to anybody. But if you give them the same status and you attach in an email the photo, it's gonna show it to 300 of their friends. And so that's a kind of a way to organically game the system, where you're just giving them the status and the photo. And you might have 20 or 30 people in your church that would do that. So, you asking a question or no?
No.
I bet you had a great one. Okay. One of the things that we've seen in the last year or two is Facebook events are back. This was really popular when we started the church, and then for about a 5-year period, it was really lame to use Facebook events. It's become, I don't know the reasoning behind it, but really popular again. It's just free. So if you're doing anything, you can do this to start a new series. Your Christmas Eve is a really good one to do this for. Do a Christmas Eve at Mosaic Church. You know, put the times in, invite all your people. It's really easy for your people to go in, and it'll show them their friends list, and they can go click, 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 invite their people to the event. And some of your people will do that, and they wouldn't actually normally have a conversation. So,
this is a good time to ask you a question. So how do you judge when you're going to do an invite card versus when you're going to do a Facebook event? Because you don't do a Facebook event for every event. So
Yeah.
how do you judge which is the best? Or
let me come back to that. If I don't answer it, then ask me again. One of the things I think that we need to do as people who want to spread the gospel is just create easy, shareable clips that your people can share or even input themselves, where you're just telling people who Jesus is. You know, testimony videos are a great example of that. That your people can share with their friends. Maybe some of you do this. You do like short message clips. Your people's neighbor, their coworker, they're not watching your 30-minute message, as great as you are. But they might if it's a 60-second clip. And the first 5 seconds are really engaging, and they might be interested. And then maybe you put a link in there and watch full message here, they might watch the rest of it. So find creative ways in 60 seconds, and 90 seconds, and 120 seconds to just engage the social media world with the gospel, with the good news of Christ. We spend $25, $50, $75 all the time just sort of real quickly just boosting even a little post like that just to kind of get the gospel out to the area. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, I think it's fine to do those things. It's good to put money into those things. But what we've learned, and I've got a guy who's on our board, been on our board for a long time. He does digital marketing for Target. It's where I learned a lot of my stuff over the years. One of the things that he's taught me is that a site like Instagram or YouTube is just good for exposure. But people don't go on Instagram to read articles or click links. In fact, it's almost impossible to get a link in there. And so all you're really doing if you put money into Instagram is it's just another way that they saw it. But if we put, like when we did our last event, I think we saw, something like 3,000 or 4,000 hits to our website from Facebook. We threw a couple $100 to Instagram, and we saw like 15 hits to our website from Instagram. And so it's just mostly exposure. You're not getting a lot of actual visitors to your website from that. And Twitter's a little better. I don't have as much experience with Twitter. And we do YouTube ads as well. So if we have like a little video promo of our event or what's going on at our church, we'll put money into, when you go on YouTube and they'll have like a quick 20-second ad that you have to watch first, and you can decide how much you want to watch it. So you'll see us on YouTube. And we have people who tell us all the time, oh, we saw it on YouTube, we saw it on YouTube. But I just think it's mostly an exposure thing. Not as many people click to our website. But at Facebook, it's like crack cocaine. People can't stop clicking. And I think that's just because you go to Facebook to click on links and read articles. It's just what you do. So I would say if you're going to start dabbling into this and you haven't done a lot with it, put your money into Facebook. Okay, we're going to have like a 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes for questions at the end. And so I'll just try and get through some of these other things. Street signs, and when I say street signs, I mean like we print like a 16-inch tall by 24-inch stick in the ground sign. To me, these are a 7 out of 10. So our average cost per visitor on a street sign is $32. So for every $32 I spend on a sign, somebody comes and visits our church. We blitz on the weekend, and so we'll use anywhere from 100, we've used at most 400 signs on a weekend, and we just put them everywhere. Like you can't, I mean, you've probably seen them driving around blank.
Yeah, they're obnoxious. No, I'm just kidding, they're really good.
They are a bit obnoxious,
You
actually.
guys have done, as someone who lives in that same community, like, I think you guys have hands done, like, the best with that. You can't go to Target without seeing your signs and all that,
Yeah.
so you've done an incredible
Around,
job.
like state and county and
So what we do, this depends a ton on your city. So we put up in maybe 6 or 7 different cities kind of around now, and there are a couple cities, Coon Rapids is one of them, I believe Fridley is the other, that, I mean, if we put a sign up, the city's taking it down in 15 minutes. It's just full out illegal, they're not doing it. I would say that probably 80% of the cities in the metro, it's not technically in their policy, but if you look, as soon as you hit Friday at 5 o'clock, all of like the realtor signs go up and all the parade of homes signs go up, and your whole city is just blanketed with signs. And then you drive around Monday morning at 8 a.m. and they're gone. The parade of homes people don't leave their signs up Monday through Friday. And so we just started doing the same thing. We put 300 signs up Friday at 5 o'clock, and then Sunday night at 7 p.m. our guys go out and they take them down, and then Monday they're gone. And the cities just, they've never bothered us about it because they know that we pick them up. So.
And we found too, like in our community, they're more okay if you're advertising a specific event coming up.
That's totally true.
Versus like your church in general. It's kind of like, all right, it's a certain event, like a week before or something, or 2 weeks before, they're okay with that.
And no one complains about our event signs, but we get complaints if it says Renovation Church. So
We have been threatened with fines in both St. Cloud, Elk River, and St. Michael.
yep, it depends. So, but play it out. Give it a
So
try.
be careful with that. Like multiple letters from the city councils.
Have
It
you
just.
asked people in your own church to put them in their yards?
Yep, we do yards. We do some, but a yard isn't as good of a return rate in that how many, there are 40 cars that drive by my house every day, where if I can get it on a corner where 700 people drive by, we'll give like 20 to our people just so they can be excited, but mostly we're putting them out. We found that we can get a volunteer to put out somewhere between 60 and 65 signs at once on a weekend, which is about 3 hours of work. It's 3.5 maybe. And we found that everybody volunteers for this ministry once and never twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's super hard work.
It's a lot of hard work.
And yet my cost per visitor is so low compared to some of these other things that you're gonna see that we just decided this is still so worth it that we actually pay people. So we find people in our congregation that are out of work and we just pay them like $11 an hour to put out street signs, and we can always find people to do it. And it's still worth it. So if I had a volunteer, this number would be maybe $20 per visitor. The only reason it's 32 is because some of the cost is just paying somebody in our church to put them
Do
out.
you like map it out? Like you tell them put these signs here, you just go?
No, we map it out. So we have a huge map, and each person gets a quadrant or
Yeah.
an area that they're in, and they say put 20 signs in this zone and 20 in that zone and stuff. So I can't tell you my secrets because you're in this. I'm just kidding.
I'll just put them right next to you.
Yeah, put on top of it.
Just cover it, yeah.
So, there's some
What's funny in our community?
there's some prices on there for you as well. Okay, let's go to postcards. Postcards is maybe next to social media the one thing that's changed drastically in the last 5 years. I would say the effectiveness cost rating of a postcard is about a 5 out of 10. The average cost per visitor, at least for us, and we've done, I don't know, probably $50,000 worth of postcards over the year, is $110. So you can see that's really different than 8 or 32. So now I gotta spend $110 to get someone in the door through postcards. 9 years ago, this was number one. Like the school of thought when planners were planning 9, 10, 15 years ago was you just did postcards. You didn't even need to do anything else. And now that just isn't the case anymore. One of the tough things about postcards is there's not a way to like cheaply dabble in it. If you want to start experimenting with social media, and some of you maybe do after this, just try it for $50. You know, you could put out 20 street signs for $100 or something, but postcards, even to do a little bit, you're out $1,500. And so that's one of the difficult things about postcards. It's not a 1 out of 10 because it's one of the only ways that you can just literally get your name out to everybody. Right? There are a ton of people who aren't on Facebook. Right? They're not going to drive by where your billboard is. But you just get it to everybody. But I just think the cost per visitor makes it hard to justify. And so we still did it. Mark did it for his grand opening and saw some decent results from it. We saw great results from it. We did our grand opening too, and some other church plants have as well. But past the grand opening, we haven't seen the same results. We actually, I think 2 events or so ago, we just stopped doing it completely. We just don't do it anymore. We'll do it some, I think, when we do a grand opening of our building in a little over a year. It says something significant. You still see businesses do it when they have a grand opening, but unless you're doing something massive, I don't know if I would spend my money on it. So
I would just say when almost all of our social media people showing up,
Yep.
people who showed up, it's like, yeah, I saw your signs, I got a postcard.
Yep. If you do postcards, lots of times if you don't ask them, a printer will just pick a radius for you. They'll say, hey, we see you're here in Otsego, and we're going to give you a 5-mile radius and we'll do postcards. Never let them pick a radius for you. Have someone on your team say, hey, we want to pick a carrier route, which is just a route of a carrier for a male man or a woman. And you can go through and they'll give it to you. You can pick actual routes. Otherwise, you're just sending to people who aren't going to come. You crossed a river, you crossed an interstate, and so pick your routes. Billboards, effectiveness and cost rating. A static billboard, that's like a billboard you throw up old school. It's up for typically the duration is 4 weeks. I would rate that as about a 2 out of 10, and a digital I would rate as a 4 out of 10. So we've done digital probably 10 or 12 times. Our cost per visitor is around 119. So again, it's up there a little bit. We've done static a couple times, and it's $250 per visitor. You're gonna drop somewhere between $4,000 or $5,000, at least in the metro, to get your name up on a big billboard for a month. Really, the billboard is the best way to reach the highest amount of people. So you're gonna have if you can get on the interstates, which is where a lot of the digital billboards are, you're having 40, 50,000 cars a day go by, and so you're reaching a ton of people, but it doesn't always translate to visitors, right? Because it's the same thing, oh, I saw that, and then they forgot it the next day. And they can't Google you while they're driving, right? Just like they could on a lot of these other things. If you want to try digital billboard, if you have one near your church, they're roughly about $500 to $700 a week. If you go longer, you can get a better deal. There's usually 8 ads on a digital billboard, and so you're one of 8, so you're not up all the time. If you have money to spend, you're putting a lot of money, it's not a bad idea as a package of marketing thing. There's something about a billboard that's really grandiose. It feels like, hey, this is a big deal. Don't miss this. We're going to do a ton of billboards when we do our grand opening of our building, because I think it says like, the whole community needs to know this. But if I'm just doing another event or a series or something, I'm not spending my money on a billboard. So.
Also, you can get them to switch it every day.
Yeah, you can do that too. So
we did a 14-day countdown
Yep.
for ours. It counted down every single day for people to buy it.
Yep.
So, $1,000 for 14 days is what we got.
The other reason you would do it is if you're going to put if you have something you really want to market, and that you should do this once a year at least, and you're going to put $7,000 into something. You know, we put 16 to 18 grand into our major events. If you're going to put a decent amount of money into something, you have to diversify your plan. And this kind of goes back to your question earlier of when we do something, my hope is that someone drives home from work, right, and they see the billboard, and they get to their mailbox, and they would get a postcard, right, and then their neighbor stops by on their way into the house and hands them an invite card, and then they check their Facebook, and it's on Facebook, and you want to diversify your options so that they actually see it. Some of these last ones I'll just go through quickly. You know, door hangers, we've tried that before. Again, not a great return. You can see some of the numbers on there. It's a little cheaper than doing an actual postcard to the mailbox because your people are basically the postage stamp, but it's a ton of work. So we mobilized roughly 100 of our people, and that got us 5,000 homes, which is great, but you just have a ton of tired people too, and it's okay. It's something different. TV we've had really low success with. We haven't done it a whole lot, but TV isn't something I put your money into right now. It's an aging demographic. Most people under 30 don't even have a basic cable package, and that's where you probably need to buy ads. One of the things that we want to do in the next year or two, and I would encourage you to look into, is just advertise on something like Hulu instead, where just you're going to see some younger families rather than something like TV. And it's hard to geo-target in TV too. Some of them do it, but sometimes you can have your ad be playing 30 miles away. Other ideas, whenever you have a postcard or an invite card, send somebody in your church to go take that postcard or invite card, anything you have, and just put it up in all the community bulletin boards. You know, there are places like Jimmy John's and Bruegger's and Panera and places where you can just put it up for free. I mean, they might rip it down in 3 days, but what did that cost you? So it's another free thing you can do. Get on TV somehow. If you're doing, you were on TV a couple of years ago, right? On WCCO, so they gave their offering away, and then did you just tell them that you were doing it?
We had a connection.
Yeah. If you're doing something special like that, whenever we do something special, I write a press release. Which you can Google how to do it. It's just a one-page thing that you're going to send to all the TV stations. And we've been on TV, I would say, like 4 times. They'll come out to our Easter egg hunt. They'll come out if we're doing some special giveaway, and we're just on TV. Now, TV isn't the same as social media, but I paid $0 to be on TV, so it's an easy thing you can do. Get car stickers, so cheap. If your church is growing and you can have 400 people driving around, that's just moving billboards. And then SEO, please invest in SEO. If you don't know what SEO is, it's search engine optimization. It's the art of getting your church to #1 when people Google churches in Rogers. That Northridge Fellowship comes up first. You can pay services like Moz Local like $80 a year, and they'll make sure to get your name on all the other sites, which helps the algorithm of your. Look into that. That's totally worth it, especially if you're a new church or you're about to plant in the next couple of years. You want your church to get up in the rankings because you're buried in the rankings when you start. Things to stay away from. Radio is way too widespread. Newspapers are so expensive. Nobody reads the paper anymore. Everybody has just really cute ideas. Like, oh, what if we put our name on Frisbees? And don't do that stuff. And the last thing I would say to you is, if you're going to start spending money in marketing, you have to track it. Because otherwise, how do you even know if it's working? You have to track your results. We've been able to grow our outreach and thus share the gospel with thousands more people and seeing a lot more people come to Christ, in large part because we work really hard to track the results of our marketing. So let me give you an example of this. We've done this event, Family Fun Day, with the blow-ups and the free food trucks for 5 years. Our church attendance has maybe increased from like 250 to 500 in those 5 years. But look at the attendance of our event, from 465, 519, 864, 1,000 to 1,500. And in those 5 years, I spent almost the exact same amount of money on the event. All we did is we just looked at that cost per visitor number, and we just kept adjusting. So we looked a couple years ago and said, man, postcard's still like $120. Facebook keeps coming in at $8. And I felt like, it just feels wrong to me to drop $3,000 on Facebook. But we just did it, and it works. And so you're constantly looking at where are people coming, and then trust your results, and then reallocate your funds. And we just drive so many more people in that way to hear about Christ. And so you have to track the question of how did you hear about us? We do that in 3 ways. We have connection cards. Many of you have that. It's just on there. We ask people sometimes to even check it. How did you hear about us? And then whenever someone does children's registration at our Renovation Kids, that's on the parent form where you get their email or address. How did you hear about us? And then when people pre-register online, which most people do, they can't even, it won't even let them submit the form unless they check, how did you hear about us? And so we actually have data for over 90% of our visitors for how they heard about us. And that allows us to reallocate our funds and then do a good job with this. So yeah, we have about 10 minutes until we're done at 1 o'clock. What marketing questions do you have? What else would be helpful to clarify or know?
So when you talked about like promoting the Facebook events,
Yep.
so typically in the past my church has done like 2 weeks before Christmas we'll promote our thing, but you're saying do a couple days.
Yeah, I mean, you could, I mean like run it for a couple days, not necessarily a couple days out. So
Okay.
like
So
don't,
yeah, that was my next question.
yeah, if you, so Christmas for instance, what I would do is we'd probably run 3 different ads and maybe one would be 14 days out to 12 days out. And then another one might be 8 days out to 5 days out. And then you have a bunch of people that they're not even gonna decide till like the day before, and then you run another ad for those people. Does that make sense? Yeah.
What about doing like insert for your local newspapers, like not the Pioneer Press, but like if you have a
Like the
smaller
town
neighborhood
newspaper or
paper,
whatever? Yeah, those are called like slicks, I think. You can do them and they're pretty cheap, but you're not necessarily hitting the demographic that you want. It depends. Some cities have a newspaper that everybody gets for free. So if you have that and it's pretty cheap, you could do it. Problem is, I think most people under 40, they just take the newspaper and just stuff it right in there. They don't even open it. So.
How much information, so like, I'm trying to picture like the signs you guys have done here, I don't know, like how much info do you put on a yard sign or do you put on a postcard? Is it just like website, logo, like?
It's
how
really
long?
low. So like, we'll do, like, it'll say Family Fun Day and the date. And then maybe, I buy, one of the things that we do in marketing is we buy custom URLs all the time.
Yeah.
So we bought famfunday.com.
Right.
Because you can buy a custom URL for like $12.99 is the average price.
Right.
And then you just redirect it to your website.
Yeah.
And so, but even if you do a church sign, a lot of signs don't even need a website anymore. Because people, they're not even gonna remember, they're just gonna Google you. Right? That's kind of what we do on most things, so really simple. If you look at most yard signs people put out or street signs, way too many words.
Yeah.
Same thing with a billboard. You should never have more than, I think the rule is 7 or 8 words on your billboard. Because people have maybe 2 seconds to read it.
Right.
So.
You can see our billboard on my Instagram. That's like 8 words. What, on the videos, you were talking about like Facebook short clips to get the gospel out there. Do you see or have you done any difference between like videos with word script and videos without? Is there a difference in clicking, or you know what I mean, like watching, views, something like that?
Yeah, well, so we started because of that. Facebook has a closed captioning, and it will, if you do like a 1-minute sermon clip, it will automatically generate the closed captioning for you. And there's a button you can do it when you go in to edit the video. And it's about 75% accurate, but it takes, I would say, less than 10 minutes to kind of go back through and edit their closed captioning.
Yep.
And we do that because there's a lot of people who are watching Facebook at work when they shouldn't be,
Right.
in their office, and they're not going to turn on the volume to listen to your 60-second clip about Jesus, but they're totally going to read the words.
Yeah.
And so yeah, always just take an extra 10 minutes and close caption your videos.
What about like follow-up from your event? So
Yep.
like you said, you guys have massive amounts of people that go
Yep.
to the Fun Fest. Do you do something unique in your follow-up? Like, how do you close that back door?
Yeah, so one of the things I think I had on here but maybe didn't mention is, you know, on a typical Sunday, we'll stick maybe 20 to 25% of people who visit. When we do a huge event, we'll stick 4%, 5%. We just keep in mind, if you bring 1,000 people into your building, you just added 40 or 50 people to your church, which is significant. And so, are you talking about follow-up for those accept Christ, or just like general visitors?
No, like they came for
Yeah.
the first time, like.
So we'll just,
Like
I mean, our simple follow-up is they get an email from us on Monday, thanking them for coming. They get the next day, Tuesday or Wednesday, a letter in the mail, just kind of about the church, we're so happy you came. And then if they have kids, we have this nice little card that we make, and it just says, "Dear Johnny, we were so happy to meet you at Renovation Kids," and their kid just gets a card, a handwritten card addressed to themselves.
So I'm a planner at heart. So do you plan out all your events for the year and your whole marketing plan, so you have a balance of methods that you use for your events, or? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just kind of done for the year, and then we plan it out. Even I'm a detail freak, and so I have our team will have maybe 2 months out tasks for each week, because there's just a lot in marketing. And if you're going to market a huge event and you're going to do some of these things, you have to start, your designer, which is usually the first place it starts, is starting probably 8 weeks out. So it's just it's a huge process.
Do you know off the top of your head, so the last couple of years, what your attendance has grown, year over year, not just for the who come. So how much are you so let's say you grew 30 people in a year. How much you spent on total marketing that year to grow by 30 people, and has that number stayed the same year over year? Do you know what I mean? For all the marketing dollars, are you growing the same rate, or?
So, I'm trying to understand your question and make sure that I understand it correctly. I'm just looking at my calculator. So last year we spent, I think, close to 40,000 on marketing, maybe 38,000. And we grew by 100 people, so
Okay.
just for every
$400.
Yeah, roughly $380.
Okay.
But like I said, if your average person is giving $1,300, so that's $1,000.
Yep.
So our budget is $40,000 larger
Yep.
because I spent $40,000 a month.
All right, I got another one. I'll just keep asking questions. I've heard people talk about Christmas and Easter are obviously natural times for people to check it out. So do you find you don't dump as much into marketing for those because they kind of market themselves? Or do you still put the same amount of effort?
It depends on your context. I think we put a ton of money into Easter because people are naturally interested in coming on Easter, and we see a ton of people come that day. Church plants, I think, traditionally have struggled on Christmas for those of you that are in a temporary facility, because in Christmas people tend to think tradition, stained glass, not elementary school gym. But yeah, you can take advantage of it. Although I will say that we stick people, actually turn them into disciples at a way higher rate when we're marketing something that's not Christmas or Easter. When people come to something that we're doing that's on September 23rd, they were willing to try church just in the middle of the year, and those people are way likely to come back. And where you just do it if you put all your money into Christmas and Easter, you can draw huge crowds, but you're not necessarily getting the person who's kind of spiritually, God's already stirring their heart. So. Other questions? We have time for maybe one more, two more.
All right, now I'm gonna be one of those two people. All right. Is there any such thing as over-marketing for one event? So would you have been ready in 2014 for the 1,500 people you had this year to show up for Easter? And if not, how do you gauge how much marketing that you can handle as a church?
You got to feel it out a little bit with your church of how much is going to come in. So I would take it step by step if you're just getting into it. Your situation's a little different. I would put all my money in the world towards a relaunch, right? Or we do the same thing with the church plant grand opening. So we spent, what'd you do, close to 18,000? And so, yeah, something like that I put a lot of money into, but once you get going, you have to have the systems to handle it. And so it took us months to plan systems to have 1,000 guests on a day, right? You're adding multiple systems. Our people don't even go to the services on those days because they're just volunteering everywhere. And we did an Easter service 4 years ago where we added a Saturday night service for the first time, and we were expecting 50 to 75 people, and 380 people came. And the children's check-in, the last person finished checking their kid in with 10 minutes to go. I've never felt worse about a service in all my years of ministry because we just weren't ready for it. And so yeah, you got to be careful of not
There's a
going
little
crazy if you're not ready for it.
question is, how do you create a fifth service and know that that's the one people are going to show up at? Or
It just slowly add. I mean, we did 7 services for Easter because you can only fit so many people in.
But with
gym.
pre-registration, that helps, right?
We don't make them tell
Oh,
tell us what time.
okay.
So you just gotta. It's experimentation.
Sure.
You play around, see what works for people, and you make some mistakes along the way. Yeah. Last question.
Have you found, or others in the room found, that as far as fall launch, is fall launch still after Labor Day, or does it seem like, boy, it's now more into September, October
Yeah.
1, or that, you know, it just seems like fall launch isn't the same as like 10 years ago, or if it, any feel that way?
I don't have a great. We've experimented with doing the Sunday after Labor Day, and honestly, we plan our fall launch around the Viking schedule. Which sounds terrible, but I'm just trying to be culturally relevant, I guess.
Yeah.
If the Vikings are playing at noon, we're not doing fall launch that day. We'll wait until they have like a 7 p.m. game or a Monday night game, because if you're an unchurched person, you're watching the Vikings. You're not coming to the event, and so we base it around that. But
We legit chose bye week.
what?
We
Yeah,
legit-
they launched on a bye
we
week,
legit
which is
chose
smart.
bye week.
Yep.
We were thinking about 11-4, 11-11, or 11 whatever.
Yeah.
We chose the 11 because it was bye week. Okay.
Yep. And now you got a Sunday night flex game going to week 2.
I know. Now we're feeding everybody this week, and we've lucked out.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll be here if you have questions afterwards. You don't like asking questions in large groups or whatever. And then I would just say this too. Thank you to all of you that were here today. This is, I've been coming to this group since I launched 9 years ago, and I know some of you are coming from different networks or different places. It's just a great group of people to be around that are really kingdom minded and just thinking about how do we exponentially reach more people for Christ. So I would just say, keep coming back. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.